everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are finally doing the video that I have been talking about for the last month now. So I've actually been testing these products for probably about 6 weeks now, and I could have just come on here on camera and like tested them with you guys, but I didn't want to do that. I felt like if I was going to claim that I found dupes slash alternatives, which I will get into in a second, I wanted to kind of make sure that these products were very similar and that they actually stood up to the claims of being an alternative or a dupe to the Charlotte Tilbury products that I compare them to. Dupes, in my opinion, need to be exact. If they're not exact, they need to be called an alternative. So some of the products that I use today are alternatives to some of the products that I have from Charlotte Tilbury. But there are a few, you guys, that I am, in my personal humble opinion, I would call them a dupe because they're almost exact. Like you almost can't tell a difference between them. I did not use any high-end, you guys. These are all drugstore, like buy at Walgreens. You can buy in the drugstore aisle at Ulta. You can buy them at CVS, that type of thing. I did not use anything that has anything to do with high-end, nothing that you can find at Sephora, anything like that. I really truly wanted to make this as affordable as possible. So this is my right side and this is my left side. So before you continue on, put it in the comments down below and let us know which side you guys think is the Charlotte Tilbury side, because honestly, my face almost looks identical. And if I went to the grocery store, nobody would ever know that I had completely different products on my face. You would never know it. They look so similar. Before we head into the tutorial, there's been so much negative YouTube drama, and in one of my previous videos that I uploaded over the weekend, I talked about turning a negative, dramatic, crazy situation into a positive. And in that video, I asked you guys to list some of the channels that you guys love and you think deserve to be shown some love. And so in every video, I have decided to do a shout out to a creator, and you guys shared so many amazing creators that really deserve shout outs. And so I feel like that's my part. Like, I think we all need to do our part. My part is trying to keep it positive, drama free, but also I want to share with you guys some creators that I feel like deserve love. So for the first creator that I'm going to throw out, you guys, is a friend of mine who I absolutely love. Now, I've never met her, obviously, but I absolutely love her. And if I met her in person, I would probably hug her for like 20 minutes. Her name is Heba S, and I will leave a link to her channel in the description box down below. She recently just took a major trip, her and her husband, to Cairo, Egypt, and oh my gosh, you guys, it was her first time vlogging, and I think she did such a good job vlogging. I would have been a complete shaky mess. So in my opinion, she did a great job. Her channel is amazing, but go ahead and check out her channel and let her know that you are, a part of my family, and show her some love. But every video, I'm just gonna throw a creator out there, you guys. I don't see this YouTube community as competition. They might be able to bring you something that I can't bring you. And whether you have a hooded eye or whether you have oily skin and I have dry skin and I don't have hooded eyes, I mean, whatever it is, there's so many different wonderful creators out there that deserve recognition. And, we all got to do our part to try to create some positivity in such kind of a nasty place right now. So go ahead and head over. I will leave a link to Heba's channel in the description box down below. Without further ado, let's jump right into this Charlotte Tilbury dupe slash alternative video, and I will see you guys in my final thoughts. The video that I have been working on for about a month and a half, the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Falls filter is my favorite product of all time, and definitely my favorite product of Charlotte Tilbury. I love the way that it makes my skin look. I love the way that it gives me that glow from within. So the thing that I've been kind of playing around with is this. This is from NYX. This is the Born to Glow Liquid Illuminator, and this is in the shade, it's L102 Gleam. The only thing about this is that this isn't the same shade, but then once I put like foundation on and stuff, I've really not been able to see a difference between the shade once I have my foundation on. This is the Charlotte Tilbury and this is the MILANI. So as you can see, this one just has a little bit more coverage, but it still has the same kind of illuminating properties to it. And as you start to kind of blend these products out, they have the same finish to them. And like I said, it's not that big of a difference when I put foundation on. And I'm just going to apply it just like I would. There are some people that do not like the packaging, like do not like the doe foot on the Charlotte Tilbury. But for me, I really like it. And it's easier for me to use because I can control it, because it's such an expensive product that if it was in like a squeezy tube or if it was in like a pump, I would use way too much of it. So I really appreciate that it has a wand. Okay, so here is what this looks like, and I've just been doing it like this because I really don't know how else to do it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and blend this in. Now I will say, this is not a dupe, you guys. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Like I said, you can see the difference between the shades. This is not a dupe, but it does give the same effect. This is not exact, but as you can see, it gave the skin that beautiful sheen that the Charlotte Tilbury does, even though the shade's different. But like I said, once I put my foundation on, you're not going to be able to see this. But I do feel like if you're somebody that wants a product to throw on the face and go without, and kind of give that shine, you're going to get more coverage with this one. But if you're on a budget and you want it to be an illuminator underneath your foundation, this is a definite nice option. Okay, so let's move on to foundation. Now, my favorite, I have the Magic foundation from Charlotte Tilbury, but it's not my favorite foundation. This one from Charlotte Tilbury is my favorite. This is the Light Wonder. This is a youth boosting, perfect skin foundation, and it really does give the skin a nice glow. It's not heavy, it's not cakey. It's more of a light coverage, but I can actually build this up and like stipple it on with a brush and really build up nice coverage with it. So the one that I think is very similar to it is the Light Illusion from Flower Beauty. This is actually a really, really pretty foundation. And I bought this one in the shade Classic Tan. And then I have the Charlotte Tilbury in number 7 medium. So I'm going to go ahead and put the Charlotte Tilbury. The Charlotte Tilbury comes in like a squeezy tube. I'm going to go ahead and build this up on this side. This is so natural. The only thing that I will say about this foundation is that if you're somebody that really needs good coverage, you're going to eat this foundation up. I mean, you are really going to run through it fast. So if you need quite a bit of coverage, you could probably build it, but you're going to use so much of it that it's not going to be worth it, especially because it's so expensive. I recommend it for those of you out there that just like a light flush of color over the face, a nice foundation that makes the skin look nice, just kind of just an all over youthful glowing type foundation. It's really, really pretty. It's one of my favorites. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the Light Illusion on this side. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply this. Now this is Classic Tan. I will say the only thing that sucks about Flower Beauty is their shades are really light. Like they run really light. This is Classic Tan and this is a light shade. Now this is a thicker foundation than the Light Wonder, but it still gives the skin that nice healthy glow and you do get a little bit more coverage, but it still has the same finish as the Light Wonder. Okay, so this is the Light Wonder and it really matches my skin good. Like it really blends in. This is the Light Wonder from Charlotte Tilbury and then this is the Flower Beauty in the shade Classic Tan. You can see you definitely get more coverage with the Flower Beauty than you do the Light Wonder. The concealer from Charlotte Tilbury is the Magic Away Concealer. I love the sponge tip on this, but I hate the way that the lid goes down into here. I just do not like that. So you twist this and the product comes into the sponge. So now I have concealer down into the tip of this. I know that many people love the Age Rewind from Maybelline. This has not been my favorite product. I have tried this so many times. I have tried so hard to make this work and I do not like this concealer. So the one that I would say would be similar that I have found from the drugstore is the Flower Beauty. This is again the Light Illusion and this pairs up with this one. If you're looking for a nice affordable option, I wouldn't say this is like super affordable because it is more expensive for being drugstore, but it works really good. So I'm going to go ahead and stick some of this right here under my eye. And I got this one in the shade Light Medium. Foundation, in my personal humble opinion, well, let me blend this in first. The foundation, in my opinion, runs light. And I feel like the concealers run a tad bit darker. You know, this is called a light medium, but I would say this is more of a medium concealer. That looks like a lot of concealer, and you guys, it's not. I barely have any bending the tip. And I will say these feel the same. They have like a soft matte finish, and they kind of have a little bit of a powdery finish, and I really like both of these concealers. So this is the Light Illusion Concealer in shade Light Medium, and this is shade 6 from Charlotte Tilbury. So you can see that this is pretty dark for being light medium. So just know that if you go to buy the Flower Beauty concealer, just know that it runs a little dark. This is a nice smooth doe foot. I really like the doe foot, and you get nice pigmentation. I mean, look at that. So I really like this concealer. I do, and a little bit goes a really long way with it. So can you really see much of a difference between my makeup right now? I mean, I'm not really seeing one. These are pretty good alternatives. They really are. So, you know, this is the NYX Flower Beauty side so far, and then this is the Charlotte Tilbury side. So let's move on to contour. Now, I really couldn't find any type of contour that's like this. So this is from Charlotte Tilbury. This is the contour wand, and I have it in the shade Fair Medium. My favorite stick contour is the KKW Beauty. There is something just amazing about their formula. I like this one. This one's like my second favorite. This one is like my all-time favorite. So the contour stick that I found is from MILANI. So you have the contour stick on this side, and you have a highlighter on the other. The highlighter is a little bit dark, but it works. I mean, it's pretty. So it kind of has a nice golden glow to it, but it blends really fast. Like, you can barely see it. And I actually really like this contour stick. Seriously, it's a decent brand, it's a decent quality, and it blends really pretty. The only thing that I will say about the contour stick is it's a tad bit on the greasy side, just a little bit. So you do have to be careful with it, because if you blend it too quickly, it will kind of blend away. The contour from Charlotte Tilbury is in the squeezy tube. And normally what I like to do is just do a little bit right here. This is a cooler toned contour, but it works the same. I mean, the one from MILANI is a little bit warmer. I like this one on the cheek, but I don't love it on my forehead. I actually prefer the KKW Beauty on my forehead, just because I just have struggled trying to get the liquid to really blend out on the forehead, and it's probably just the way I'm using it, you know? It's like I haven't really like mastered the technique. Let's go ahead and do the MILANI on this side. And like I said, it is one of those that it's a little bit greasy, which I'm not mad at, because you're able to really blend it out good. I'm gonna wipe this brush off. If you're not careful, you will sometimes pick up too much, and then you have to kind of go back in and add more, you know what I mean? I like this one from MILANI, I really do. I mean, look how pretty that is. It just blends. Okay, so this is the Charlotte Tilbury, and this is the MILANI. And again, the MILANI is in shade medium dark. So if you wanted something a little bit like this, you could probably do light medium, but that's what those shades look like. All right, let's move on to bronzers. Now, I have a couple of options here. One of my favorite bronzers is from Charlotte Tilbury, and it is the Filmstar Bronze and Glow Face Sculpt and Highlight. It's in fair medium. This is expensive, but I don't mind paying it because I get the contour and the highlight together, so I'm able to utilize it. Now, if I was only able to use the bronzer and didn't like the highlighter, then it would be a complete waste. It's a face palette from Flower Beauty, and this is called the Beauty Flash, and I've used this a few times now. And you have the bronzer down here, and you have a highlighter over here, and then you have these options for the eyes. You have some blushes right here. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a little bit small, so to use these as blushes is almost not really practical. I'm gonna be honest, it's not that practical. But the other option that I have is this from Rimmel. I've used this a few times, so I kind of know how this wears. And this has a highlighter, a contour, sculptor, bronzer, and a blush. And this is from the Kate collection. And this is a nice little duo. The shades in this, Very, very pretty. Now, I think if you're darker than I am, you might not be able to use this on your skin tone, but if you're my skin tone or lighter, I think you will really like this. The only thing negative I would say about this is it's a little bit powdery. So this is the bronzer from Flower Beauty, and this is the bronzer from Charlotte Tilbury. And as you can see, this bronzer in this palette is not really an alternative because it has shimmer in it. The one from Charlotte Tilbury doesn't. So I'm gonna go ahead and swatch the Rimmel one over on this side. This one from the Rimmel is almost very similar. As you can see, this is the Charlotte Tilbury, this is the Rimmel. So they're very, very similar. This one has a little bit more of like a satin sheen, and this one's definitely just a matte. But in my opinion, as far as shade goes, the one from this Rimmel palette right here is really a nice alternative to this bronzer. Okay, so I went ahead and swatched the highlighters, and the highlighters are exactly the same in my opinion. Can you see a difference between those two? Because I am really not seeing a difference between, again, Rimmel and Charlotte Tilbury. There's just, and you know, the bronzers look the same, the highlighters look the same. Okay, so I'm gonna go into this bronzer right here from the Charlotte Tilbury palette, kind of bronze it up, and just kind of go over that contour. So I'm gonna go ahead and wipe my brush off and go into this. Now I will say that is the other negative about this is that, you know, when you're using the Charlotte Tilbury, you have a bigger pan to kind of take a bigger brush like this in. This is not necessarily that friendly with a big brush. Go over top. See how much better my contour looks with the cream versus the liquid? It just, I don't know, I just am not a fan of liquid contour on my forehead. Do you see a difference between those two bronzers? Now, don't get me wrong, they're a little sharp right now, and once I put powder on and kind of like really buff it out, it won't be as sharp, but I'm not seeing much of a difference. The contour, yes, the contour on this side is warmer, so there's a warmer tone because of the MILANI, but in, you know, as far as the bronzer goes, you guys are very, very, very similar. So I only have one blush from Charlotte Tilbury, and it's because this is not my favorite formula for the price. Like, I like this formula, but I've never understood the hype around the price because I have so many blushes in my collection that I like just as much as this one that's not near as expensive as this one. This is Charlotte Tilbury's Chic to Chic blush, and this is in the shade First Love. So this is the Charlotte Tilbury in First Love. This shade right here is from this palette, the Flower Beauty palette, and it's this shade right in the middle. Okay, so that's what that looks like, and those look very similar. The only difference is this has a sheen to it, and the Charlotte Tilbury is more of a matte blush. But then this is the blush right here in the Kate palette, and I will be honest with you guys, I kind of feel like this shade would be very similar to the Pillow Talk blush from Charlotte Tilbury. It just seems like it has that same tone as the Pillow Talk blush. So if you decided to grab this, I feel like you're gonna have a pretty good dupe for a Charlotte Tilbury highlighter, a Charlotte Tilbury bronzer, and a Charlotte Tilbury blush. So I'm gonna go into this shade right here in this Flower Beauty and kind of swirl this in. Now again, I will buff it out a little bit more and go into this palette, or this blush. This is the drugstore side. This is the Charlotte Tilbury side, and there's just not much difference. Okay, so I'm gonna go into this highlighter right here and put that on. Now, I mean, that is a really pretty highlighter, you guys. It's not overwhelming. So for those of you that like that pop of highlight, this isn't going to do it. And if you put too much on, it will kind of give you a gray tint. So just be careful with it. But I've had that experience with the Charlotte Tilbury one as well. All right, so I've wiped the brush off. Let's go into this one. Okay, so Charlotte Tilbury side, drugstore side. You guys know that my all-time favorite powder from Charlotte Tilbury is this. This is the AIRBRUSH Flawless Finish Powder. I have in the shade medium 2. I love this. I bought this like months ago, and it took me so long to really learn how to use this. I am obsessed with this powder. Absolutely, unequivocally obsessed. Like, it's so finely milled that just, oh, it blends so pretty over the skin. This one from Wet n Wild, okay, it's messy. It's been sitting out on my counter for a minute. I've been using the hell out of it. Difference is this one's a little bit powdery. So let me go ahead and apply this. So I've got my brush here, I've got some on here, and I'm just gonna smooth this over my pores, okay? And kind of bring it up around my forehead. You can tell that that kind of blurred everything out. Now, I don't feel like this powder does quite what the Charlotte Tilbury powder does. The Charlotte Tilbury powder is very expensive, and I feel like it's a unique powder. I feel like it's very hard to dupe. This is a nice alternative, but I would never call this a dupe. So I'm gonna wipe the brush off. I'm gonna go into the Charlotte Tilbury palette, and I'm just gonna blur out my pores. I mean, you can see the difference. I'll pull you guys in just a second, but you can clearly see the difference, especially right here. That's where you'll notice the most difference, is right on the pores. There's something magical about this powder and the way that it literally like blurs everything out. If you have enlarged pores or you have a lot of texture right here in this area, I think that this powder would be like life-changing. It's very expensive, it's spendy, but it's a nice powder. You can see that that powder from Wet n Wild is pretty, but you can see just the smoothness from that Charlotte Tilbury powder. Am I right? If you guys have an alternative, let me know. So this is the drugstore side. And then obviously this is the Charlotte Tilbury side. Okay, so let's talk about the eyeshadow palettes. So I have the Exaggerize and the Pillow Talk palettes here from Charlotte Tilbury. These shades right here, this, okay, and this have been extremely hard to find alternatives for. Those shades are very unique. I have a few options for the Exaggerize palette. So this is what that shade looks like swatched. This shade right here is from the ColourPop Golden State of Mind palette. And I actually had to mix a few of these shades. I put this shade on first, I put this over top of it, and then stuck this over top of it. So it's the first shade in the palette, and then the third shade over, and the third shade over in the Golden State palette. So that's what this shade looks like. And again, it has a little bit of a purpley undertone to it. It's definitely nowhere near that shade, you guys. It is so, so hard to dupe that shade. This one down here is from the It's My Pleasure palette, okay, from ColourPop. And I used this shade right here at the bottom, this one right there. That one's called Mr. Sandman, and it's definitely got more of like a purpley undertone. So if I turn my arm to the side, you'll see the undertone of these. So as far as the Pillow Talk palette, so this is the Pillow Talk palette. This shade right here is exceptionally hard to find and dupe for. Like, I have swatched my fingers in so many palettes, it's ridiculous. Because it has that unique wet look to it, seriously, the State of Mind, this Golden State of Mind, has been the only palette that I have found, because you know, this is a solid like shimmer palette. This has been the only palette that I have found that has some shades similar to it. So this is the Pillow Talk palette. This is that shade right here. It's very unique, and as you can see, it has a pink undertone. This shade right here is this shade in the Golden State palette. So, you know, this is the first shade. So it's the second row and the fourth over. It's the shade right here. Now these have names on them, but I don't know how they're listed, and I really don't dare like give you the names of it. That's what that shade looks like alone. But then when you put this shade right here over top of this shade, then you get this shade right here. And I'm saying that those are very similar. As you can see, if I turn away from the light and you can see the undertone, they have similar undertones to them. Now, as far as the matte shades go themselves, I would say this flower palette is very similar. There are some similarities between each palette. I don't know that they're exact, but definitely similar. So I'm gonna use this palette on this side, and I'm gonna mix between these two palettes on this side. I am going to highlight my brow bone, and I'm gonna use this shade right here from the Flower Beauty palette. Yeah, that shade doesn't really work unless you get it wet. So if you really want that shade to be nice and impactful on that brow bone highlight. Definitely get it wet. I'm gonna take that same brush, and I've wiped it off, and I'm gonna go into this shade right here in the Exaggerize palette. Okay, I'm also going to bring that on the inner corner. I'm gonna grab this shade from the Flower Beauty side. Then I'm gonna go into this shade in the Pillow Talk palette. Okay, so as you can see, they look very similar. I mean, maybe this one is a tad bit on the pink side, but they look very, very similar. Now I'm gonna go in this shade right here. And what I've noticed is that even though this shade is a little bit darker than this shade in the Exaggerize, because it's not as pigmented, it actually blends out to being very similar. Now I'm gonna go into this side right here on the Exaggerize palette. The Flower Beauty is a little bit more powdery, so you do get a tiny bit more fallout than I get with the Charlotte Tilbury, but at the end of the day, these are very similar, and I think they're gonna be just as pretty on the eye. This shade right here in the Pillow Talk palette, this palette just completely came apart. So this is like a window, and it's supposed to be glued to this, and it just came unglued. Well, that sucks, but anyway. But it's very similar to these shades right here. Okay, so this is the Charlotte Tilbury and this is the Flower Beauty. There's not much difference between those two shades. I'm gonna go into the Golden State of Mind. So I'm gonna go into this shade first from the Golden State and then go in with this shade. The problem with my Pillow Talk palette is that I've swatched it so much that it's starting to become very chunky. Like, I've swatched it so much doing videos that it's really chunky. That looks very, very similar. I'm gonna go in to this dark shade right here in this Flower Beauty palette. I'm gonna go into this shade right here. I'm gonna go into this shade in the Exaggerize palette. Then I'm gonna go into this shade in the Pillow Talk palette. Okay, so let's talk about the lip options that I have, because I have some here that are pretty much exact, like maybe a tad bit off. I think if you're gonna have dupes / alternatives, this is about as good as you're gonna get. First up, these two are definitely not similar. Okay, let's just throw that out there. So this right here on the bottom is the iconic Nude from Charlotte Tilbury. It is definitely one of my favorite lip liners, but I do have to mention this because this, in my opinion, is the perfect lip liner for these two shades that I'm going to be talking about in a second. So this is from Rimmel, and I noticed this when I was going through some lip liners when I was at CVS, and this one is in the shade 049 Natural. This is the Charlotte Tilbury. This is the Pillow Talk. So this is the iconic Pillow Talk that everybody loves, and this is in the Matte Revolution lipstick. The Matte Revolution lipstick lasts quite a long time. This right above it is from L'Oreal, and this lasts even longer, which is what you see stained right here on my arm. This is in the shade 416 Create, and those, you guys, are almost identical. Like, I'm gonna come in as close as I can. Look how identical those are. Like, those are so similar. This is gonna last longer than this. So, in my opinion, that isn't an alternative, that's a dupe. This is a liquid lipstick, so the wand is very unique, and I actually really like the wand on these. It's a fantastic formula, and I love them. Okay, so here we have Charlotte Tilbury right here in the middle. And this one is in the shade Secret Salma. So this is Secret Salma. Right over here is a lipstick formula. from BH Cosmetics. It's in the shade Rosy Ray, and it's from the RAYE collaboration with BH Cosmetics. And that looks very similar to the Secret Salma. And then over on this side is from ColourPop. This is from the, I think this is the Shayla collaboration. This is in the shade Come On Sis. I do want to mention I'm not a super huge fan of the Luxe lipsticks from ColourPop. Like, tons of people love them. I can't get them to last like 20 minutes tops on me. None of these are going to last near as long as the Charlotte Tilbury, but they're similar in shade. Okay, so next up, this is from Charlotte Tilbury, and this is from her Kissing formula. And this one is in the shade America's Sweetheart. Now, they don't look similar right now, but once this one dries, it dries down very similar. So this is from Maybelline, and this is their Superstay 24-hour color. I really love these formula. This has been one of my ride or die formulas for many, many years. This is in the shade 150 Timeless Toffee, I believe. This takes a minute to dry, and then once it dries on your lips, then, because this is how it comes. So it's a double-ended, so you have the wand right here, and here's the formula, okay? And then you put it on, and then you have to let it dry for about a minute, and then you go over with this, and it will kind of give you the glossiness. And then throughout the day, you can just reapply this. Kissing formula is more of a satin, got a little bit of a shine to it. Okay, so now that you guys have seen the lip options, I'm gonna go ahead and apply the lip liner, the Charlotte Tilbury Iconic Nude on this side. And then I'm gonna do the natural on the other from Rimmel. Now I'm gonna take this Matte Revolution in the shade Pillow Talk on this side. Then I'm going to take this formula from L'Oreal. Again, this is in the shade Create, and I'm going to apply it on this side. Can you tell the difference between those two lipsticks on the lip? You can't, can you? They look so incredibly similar. And I will say this one from L'Oreal is a little bit thinner. So, you know, this one is obviously a lipstick, so it's a little bit thicker of a formula. This is very thin, glides on very pretty. And I will be completely honest with you guys, I actually prefer this one over this one. I love the Matte Revolution, but there's something amazing about the formula in this new L'Oreal. I can't remember what these are called, but anyway, fantastic products. I feel like these are some great alternatives, and save that hard-earned cash. It's all about saving that money wherever we can, and I hope that these products, you know, help you do that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you guys again for all the love that you guys show me and my channel. It absolutely means the world to me, and I hope you guys have a wonderful week filled with love and happiness. I will see you guys in my next video, and I love you all so much. Bye!